Good morning. This is Dr. Bassari. Welcome to another lecture and welcome to our channel and our program. Today's lecture is about happiness versus pleasure, dopamine versus serotonin. So, as you know, our brain is an electrical field. The two nerve cells never touch each other because they would burn each other. It's an electrical field. So the connection, how they speak to each other, is through the release of a substance called neurotransmitter. We have identified over 150 different neurotransmitters in the brain, but one of the two major ones are serotonin and dopamine. And why do we care about these two? I will get to that at the end of this lecture, but first you need to know these two neurotransmitters. The dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, it's positive reinforcement neurotransmitter. When it is released, it says, this feels good, and I want more. This is the order, and that order will get to the body, get to the human, and we will go and get more of whatever was. Serotonin, or happiness neurotransmitter, it says it feels good. Same answer, same thing. It feels good, but I do not need anymore. It's a contentment neurotransmitter. Like when you hug your child, it feels good, and I do not want anything more on this earth. At this moment, sometimes we say, if I die, I will die happy. But dopamine never says that. Dopamine is always in the future. I want more. I want more. This is good, but not good enough. Get me more. And in this dance between the dopamine and serotonin, there is a third hormone that plays a role, and a very, very crucial role, and that's called cortisol. Cortisol. Cortisol is our stress hormone, okay? Stress hormone. And not a bad thing. The fact that you and me are sitting here is thanks to our ancestors' cortisol. That's what saved them, and that's why we are sitting here. If cortisol wasn't efficient enough for them, they would have been eaten up by a lion. So we are very, very grateful to our hormone cortisol. And even today, it saves us at the time of crisis, when we are in the middle of accident or earthquake. We get heroic strength. And that comes from the cortisol. But it uses all the resources of the body. So, as you know, we live in a community, in a world of chronic stress. There is no lion chasing us, but we are chronically stressed out. We are not enough. We are not enough at work. We are not enough at home. We are not enough as a parent, as a children to our parents. We feel this constant feeling of, I'm not enough. I have so much more to do, and I just can't. And there is no time. So this is called chronic stress. So why is it important? Because cortisol, when it gets into the blood system for whatever reason, it will go to the prefrontal cortex right behind your forehead, above your eyes. That's where your humanity is sitting. That's what makes us humans compared to a dog, cat, horse, lizard. That is called a prefrontal cortex that makes decisions, the reason, right? And what cortisol does, it disconnects that area or make it dysfunctional. And that dysfunctional prefrontal cortex doesn't want and even cannot see the future. Only now matters. I just want to live in the moment. It's so important to understand that a dysfunctional prefrontal cortex will make us like a lizard. All we want to do is live for now, get the food for now, and future means nothing. And that's exactly what a lizard brain is. Do they plan for college graduation? Do they plan for getting married and having children? No planning involved. Just they live in the moment, get the food in the moment, meet the partner in the moment, die in the moment. No future involved here. So when I have stress in me, chronic stress, it will drive the reward system faster. And when you have, basically to give you an example, is having your foot on the gas, speed up your car with driver that is sleeping. The driver is not aware of what's happening here. And of course, we will have accidents. Of course, we will have accidents. And our accidents is addiction. That's what our accidents would be. So, combination of dopamine and cortisol will lead to addiction. So reward is good, stress is not good. And chronic stress makes you want reward because of lizard brain. And that will set us up all for addiction and for misery in this life. Now we will talk about serotonin. Serotonin. Serotonin is the happiness and contentment. It's very important to understand. What I have is enough. It's what is in my environment. I have you, I have my cup of tea, I have my pen and paper, I have myself. It's enough. I don't need to plan. I don't need to think of what is next. That's within my environment, within my zone, personal zone. What does cortisol do? Downregulates serotonin receptors. So cortisol literally does two really bad things. Chronic cortisol, chronic stress. One is disconnect the CEO, the prefrontal cortex, to the rest of the brain, to give advice, to lead, and then goes and lowers serotonin and down-regulates the receptors on the other end for the serotonin the happiness hormone to bind. So now we get unhappy and go for more dopamine. So addiction and unhappiness go hand in hand. The more you seek pleasure in life, the more you release dopamine, the less serotonin you will have. So you will get more pleasure, less happiness. Then you feel bad, so you go for more pleasure. So you see, it's a vicious cycle. And we are like rats in this wheel. And we just run ourselves to exhaustion, to depression, to addiction, and the sad, sad, sad stories that we can see around us, right? So remember, my friends, all of this, the gas on this fire is cortisol, stress. Stress is really behind the scene, feeding and disturbing the system that we have in our brain. Nothing that's been created is bad. Dopamine is my reward system. Dopamine is who I am. It's always me. Dopamine means me. What are my credentials? What are my pleasure? What food do I like? What car do I like? What partner do I like? What clothes I like? Everything me. I don't care about you. You like this, you like that, has nothing to do with me. That's dopamine. And nothing wrong with it either. That reward system been disconnected. In animal studies, they removed the reward system, and those animals, they just died. They had no reason to leave the cage nest, go and get food. So this dopamine we need. We need that to get up in the morning. We need that to go and learn. Nothing bad with it, but everything in moderation and everything in balance with other neurotransmitter, especially serotonin. So there is a difference between pleasure and happiness. So none of it is bad, as long as I know what is what, okay? Reward and contentments are not the same thing. What is the difference between dopamine, the pleasure neurotransmitter, and serotonin, the happiness neurotransmitter? Happiness, true happiness, is long-standing. It lasts. Pleasure is short-acting. Let's say that I went and ate a good meal. I enjoyed it, but it won't last the next day. I need to eat again. Happiness, contentment, it lasts a lifetime if you reach it. So pleasure, short-lived. I drink a cup of coffee, short-lived, as long as that coffee is in my system. Drink alcohol, short-lived. Doing drugs, as long as you do the drug and the drug is in your system, that's the effect. Not happiness. The other one. Dopamine, pleasure, feels in your body. It's usually a bodily pleasure. right? I get massage. I have relationship. You eat food, it's in your body. You drink alcohol in your body. You understand? Happiness is in the head, it's in the mind. It's up here, from here upwards. Nothing in the body, no tingling in the body. Pleasure is always in taking, always in taking. I take money from this world. I take a car from this world. I take a husband from this world. I take, I don't know, clothes. I always take. So it's, you understand, I have to add something to me, credentials, a degree, a car, something. Happiness is only achieved in giving. Giving. When you give to a dog, when you give to another human being, when you go and volunteer at a nursing home, when you help a friend or a patient, that's happiness. It's never about me, it's about you. Pleasure is achieved alone. I don't need anybody to give me pleasure, right? When you eat a cake, chocolate cake, if you like it, or ice cream, do you need anybody's help to enjoy? No, it's done by yourself. Happiness, it's with others. Happiness, it's with others. You do act of service with others. You pray with others. You go and help somebody with others. You have a birthday party with others and truly celebrating somebody. And pleasure always comes from a form of substance. Dopamine comes from a form of substance, from cocaine, from alcohol, from food, from shopping, from social media, from somebody put a like on your content, from somebody like your presentation. Dopamine comes, this is a dopamine release. You go to the social media, put your celebrations, your Christmas, your house, your children, your this, your that. It's always an act that is displayed on the outside. Happiness, no substance needed. Nothing needed to be happy. You don't need to have your food or alcohol or coffee or a phone, or you see, you understand, it's from within, not from without, from outside. And we need to understand, when it comes to happiness, there is not such a thing as addiction. There is no ceiling for happiness. But for dopamine, there is one, and called addiction. Dopamine and serotonin are two different neurotransmitters, two different areas of the brain. And actually serotonin goes on 15 different areas and dopamine 5. Two different pathways, highways they have in the brain. Two different mechanisms of action and two different drivers. So we need to understand serotonin and dopamine drivers and see which neurotransmitter is leading us, is guiding us in this life. So why do we care about serotonin and dopamine? You need to care. You need to care because we are living in a world that everything is dopamine. And evolution is very slow. Never been this fast. Never been like this, that in every corner, anywhere we go, there is something for our pleasure. Food is everywhere. Alcohol is everywhere. Tobacco is everywhere. Drugs are everywhere. Social media is everywhere. That's our biggest addiction. Games are everywhere. And the poor brain of our children and our youth and ourselves too. We are addicted too. So dopamine, when it's released from a nerve cell, has the excitatory effect on the next nerve cells. Excitatory, it's activating. And that's very important. Remember, our brain is a bunch of, is electrical field. Our brain produces electrical impulses that controls everything, controls our body, our emotion, our life. So you need to understand nerves, the nerve cell neuron, with the next neuron, it has an excitatory effect. So dopamine has activating effect. And since these are electrical cells, too much excitement, they don't like. They do not like. Our brain doesn't like too much impulses, too much electrical impulses, right? Nerve cells do like to be tickled, but do not like to be chronically overstimulated. Overstimulated, you know, it's exhausting the nerve. This nerve cell, this one cell in the brain called neuron that doesn't touch the next cell because they both have electrical activity, impulse. So they should not overstimulate the next nerve cells. And if they do that, that next cell will down-regulate the receptors so it doesn't get buzzed all the time. So we have 80 to 100 billions of these neurons, and each one of them communicate with 5,000 other neurons. And stimulation of those neurons in a long run leads to down-regulation of receptors. Nerve cells says, in order to survive this zapping, this electrical impulse coming and excite me all the time, I lower my receptors. And that's why we have addiction. You need more dopamine to get less effect, because the more it goes up, the other side will down-regulate the receptors. That's why when it comes to pleasure, we constantly want more. There is no enough point for us. The reason is this much pleasure in our life, seeking pleasure in our lives will lead us to down-regulate serotonin receptors and down-regulate dopamine receptors. And because of that, I go and drink 4 glasses of whatever, vodka, but I don't understand that I raise the dopamine here between the synapses, between the two nerve cells, But at this side, it's trying to protect itself. So receptors are downregulated. If they don't do this, they will die. If the nerve cells doesn't do this, it will die. And this is called tolerance. Tolerance means I'm used to it. If 1 cup of coffee would give me the whatever effect it is, now it doesn't. I need to go to 2. I need to go to 3. And there is no end to it. And when it goes to addiction, when that cell dies, that neuron is called addiction. Most of the addicted people have brain damage. Literally brain damage. They have killed their neurons. When you do cocaine and your dopamine level goes to 4,000, do you know what damage you have done? First of all, you have depleted all your dopamine. We don't have unlimited supplies of this neurotransmitter. Like I have like, let's say 10,000 dopamine. Example, 10,000 dopamine in this nerve cell. I have released 3,000 of this today. And now I have another 50 years to go. So what am I going to do? I don't have enough. On the other hand, this much dopamine downregulates the receptor on the other side because they will die. It's too much electrical activities on them. It's too much excitement. So now I have ruined my brain. I literally have ruined my brain. I deplete the dopamine. I mess up the receptors. How can I go back to normal? How can I go back to normal? Normal is 100 dopamine a day, right? Normal is I drink a cup of coffee is 200 dopamine. So I have no receptors now. I have downregulated. Now life becomes a misery. Literally addicted. This people with substance abuse, they have done such a damage, I would say, to their brain and to their receptors that life is really not livable for them anymore. They need more and more and more dopamine. They are running in this life, chasing dopamine, chasing pleasure, not knowing that the more they do, the more they run for pleasure, the less happy they will get. Families, now the sexual interaction between 2 partners is not enough. They go to the group. Group is not enough. They go into the club. Club is not enough. There is no end to this misery. And each one of us have a drug of choice. Each one of us. Some of us, social media is our drug of choice. That's where we get the dopamine. But the more we do that, we don't understand. I get 2 million followers. I get 300 million likes. Intention matters. Intention. Is this content I do for the service and to help somebody, or is it for me? That's why our intention in everything in this life is a bottom line. And God knows it. God knows it very well. And we have to really ask, pray, please keep my intentions pure. Please, because sometimes we can fool ourselves. So that's what dopamine does. Too much of it, less effect. Please understand this part. The more you increase your dopamine, the less you get because of downregulation of receptors. So now we go to serotonin. What is the story there? Serotonin, it's inhibitory. It doesn't activate the next one. You understand? So I can have 50,000 serotonin in my synapse. It doesn't kill the next nerve because it's not an excitatory neurotransmitter. It actually inhibits. It calms down the next 5,000 that are in connection with serotonin. It goes and says everything is okay. You don't need to do anything. You see? And that's why there is no limit for how much serotonin we can have in the synapse. And one more thing that downregulates the serotonin receptor is dopamine. Dopamine, together with cortisol, go and downregulate our serotonin and the receptors, the doors. So, what is the consequences of this? Unhappy people that don't know the difference between pleasure and happiness. They have mixed it together. They call it happy hours when they go out and drink alcohol. This is not happy hours. This is called pleasure hours. Pleasure hours increases dopamine. Dopamine leads to downregulation of the receptors on the other end, at the receiving end, and lower serotonin receptors. So in me seeking pleasure in life, I will be unhappy, very unhappy human being. So this lecture, this visit with you is about understand where the happiness is. The true happiness is in act of doing something for another human being. It's about lowering your cortisol. Lowering your cortisol. And I had a lecture in, of course, Persian. I will put it in English. 7 ways of lowering our cortisol. One of the best ways is good sleep. Second, walk, 30 minutes walk in nature. Under the, if you can, between 8 and 12 a.m. with sun. Sunlight is magic for us, magic for us. Make sure you have enough supplements that is needed to make serotonin and dopamine. Understand our brain needs calm. Please understand this I put it at a kindergarten level. Our brain is electrical field. Our brain needs calming. This electrical field, this waves has to calm down. And that we do with the power of meditation and with the power of our breathings. Our breathing is the only part of autonomic nervous system that's in our hand, that we can actually change how we breathe. You understand, like dolphins, they don't have this autonomic. That means it does it on its own. They have 1/2 of brain has to always be awake to make sure you breathe. So if you put the dolphin into anesthesia, knock them out, right? They will die because they don't have what we have as a human. You never can stop your breathing. You have no power over your breathing center. Even when you are knocked out, you breathe, right? Because that's a part of your brain that does it, knows it. Like temperature. Can you change it? Like your heart rate. Can you change it? You can change it, but you cannot stop your heart. These are out of your control. Like your GI, your bowels. Can you stop the movement there? No. All of this are happening is parasympathetic system. They are on their own and are regulated. But breathing is a way, breathing is that part that we can regulate, can calm it, can make it deep. Meditation brings the brain waves down. There are devices like alpha stimulator. I had in one of my lectures, they are using it a lot in mental health. It's a device and you put 2 electrodes on your earlobes and choose the setting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And depending on how anxious this brain is, it puts it into alpha wave. Alpha waves are the calm waves of the brain. Beta means when we are awake, when we look. Alpha is the step before you sleep. You know, the land between awake and sleep. That's your alpha. And this puts you into that alpha wave. So with meditation, with deep breathing, with exercise, you can calm down this electrical field. Like seizure patients, I just want to give you an example. Seizure patients, there is a rhythmic impulse, electrical impulse in our brain, rhythmic. When this is disturbed, when an area of the brain uncoordinated sends impulse out, fires, sends out impulses, the balance is disrupted. That area is in chaos, electric chaos. And that's called seizure, right? Seizure. The entire brain goes into seizing. And that's the electrical impulse that has no order, right? So you have to help your seizing patient. You have to find why they are seizing, because literally they can fry their brain. You understand? You can burn your brain. And a lot of patients that have uncontrolled seizures or not on medications, they will have brain problem. So one of the reasons I have to help a seizure patient is that I want to preserve the brain. You kill your brain, you burn your brain, you fry your brain if you don't stop this electricity that has no order. We have a brain-blood barrier that does not let any molecule that has electrical impulse to come in. It's an electrical field. Pay attention to it. Pay attention to your electrical field, and meditation and prayers calms it down. We need to calm it down. Our brain likes calm. Okay, dear friends, thank you for your patience. I wish you all serotonin in your brain, and I wish moderation of dopamine, not too much, not too little. And till next week, goodbye. Stay healthy, stay present, stay mindful, and try to be in the act of service, and try to have that intention, the intention of being kind and serving humanity. Thank you.